What is up, guys? Rick Cacus here, keeping you up to date with all of the Destiny 2 news. And today we have some more of that aforementioned D2 news to discuss. Now, most of this news does come from an IGN article linked in the description down below. The article did come out yesterday, but I'd already put up 2 videos and I really didn't want to spam you guys. And so we're going to discuss it and a few more things today. Now, this article was mainly going really broad strokes into what they felt the game was like, what it offered, and really setting the roadmap for the days to come. Because remember, IGN does have an exclusive deal with Bungie right now. So in the coming few weeks are going to be revealing on several different days certain aspects of the game. So it's going to be a busy few weeks for news. But today's news, well, let's get started. The first thing I want to talk about is lore and story within Destiny 2. These are two huge aspects, and frankly, they're pretty intertwined. The lore is just telling essentially the background to the in-game story. Bungie was adamant that they would improve the story and the lore in Destiny 2, but we actually got a literal example of how they're doing that with this article. Quoting here, "How you'll discover pieces of lore peppered throughout the worlds. For example, while exploring Nessus, we were given a side quest from Failsafe." Now, Failsafe is an AI personality, an AI unit that was found on Nessus, "to locate recordings left behind by early explorers. These describe their struggles after a crash landing and give us a peek at the early struggles humanity endured in Destiny as they ventured out into the unknown." It was a fantastic example of how Bungie is blending the narrative into the world instead of through Grimoire cards to be deciphered from your mobile app or the website. So that's really interesting, and again, it goes over some of the improvements that Bungie is making to lore and story. In fact, remember that there are going to be no Grimoire cards in Destiny 2, no Grimoire score. It's all in-game. And so, with that example, when they said that you locate recordings of early explorers, those really sound like the replacements to Grimoire cards. In Destiny 2, it's very likely that you're going to be finding recordings and scannable objects and other things where the exposition, essentially the information that was on the Grimoire cards, will be read out to you at that moment in game. And that's more similar to honestly, the first game that comes to mind is something like BioShock, where you found people's left behind recorders. So that is a really interesting way about how lore is changing in Destiny 2. And in fact, since we're on the subject of Nessus, where the example took place, let's actually talk about content. How much is actually in Destiny 2? Well, we actually got a little bit of an example of this and a little bit of insight into how much content there is, because we got some looks at the map within game specifically for Nessus. Yes, Destiny 2 has an in-game map, which thank goodness it does. Destiny 1 has none of that stuff. And Reddit user AVP Freak compiled all of the different images of the Nessus map into one big image that you're seeing here. And you can just really see how many things there are to do. Now, of note, let's kind of break down what's on screen. Now, first off, this symbol here with the downward pointing arrows is very likely to be, it's not confirmed, but it is very likely to be your landing zones on Nessus. Unlike in Destiny 1, Bungie already talked about how you're going to get to choose your landing zones on a certain planet. So you don't have to land in a specific place and then travel all the way to one end of the explorable area. You can land much closer to the area you actually want to go to. And so there looks like to be 4 different landing zones on Nessus. Now remember, this isn't the entirety of the map. When the full game comes out, there's likely to be a little bit more that wasn't shown here, but that's pretty interesting. Moving on with the symbols, this symbol here is a public event, and the line around it is how long that public event will be remaining. We actually saw an example of the user go over that public event, which showed its rewards and time remaining. There's also the symbol for adventures shown here. Adventures are quests given out by NPCs, and Bungie talked about how adventures are actually pretty big. They're full-fledged side quests, and some could arguably be as big, if not taking the place of campaign missions. And there's 7 adventures we can see on Nessus right here. Likely there's a chance for there to be even more because you have to discover the NPC probably first before that mission becomes available. But we also have some more symbols really in the background here. This symbol here is actually the symbol for lost sectors. Lost sectors are actually an activity in Destiny 2 where you go and find a treasure. They're hidden treasures throughout the map. And these lost sectors often have a powerful boss guarding them, to which you'll have to defeat in order to open up the treasure. There's also this blue symbol here, which most people are saying is a strike, but isn't necessarily confirmed to be so. And then there's a couple of different unknowns. These circles here, I'm not entirely sure what these are, and also you see a bunch of crossroads throughout the entire map, a bunch of small ones. And these, to me, I think they're most likely to be patrol missions, like going and killing enemies or going and killing certain enemies like you have right now in Destiny, but obviously improved and expanded upon in Destiny 2. That would make sense, but we're not entirely sure. I've heard someone say that those are campaign missions, but I seriously doubt that, especially because I really do feel like adventures could be taking the place of campaign missions in some aspects. So what this really shows here, although we have some unknowns, and I don't want to commit and say, yeah, these are campaign missions when we don't actually know that, but this just shows a lot of content. It shows there's a lot of symbols, there's a lot of things to do, and there's a pretty big map to go and explore. This is all great stuff, and remember, Nessus is just one of really 4 different areas that you can go in Destiny 2. Right here we have Nessus, and then we have Io, Earth, which contains a European Dead Zone, which is very important because Bungie has already gone on record saying that the European Dead Zone is by far the largest area to explore, much more than an area like Nessus. And then last we have Titan. So it looks like there's going to be a lot of stuff to do just exploring the worlds in Destiny 2, which obviously is very good stuff. Now moving on, we've got some new information about flashpoints. Flashpoints is a new activity coming to Destiny 2 where a certain area will be highlighted each week, and then going to that area for that week and doing certain things will get you good rewards. Quoting the article, there are also flashpoints now, promising Nightfall tier rewards. These are the new reason to get players running to a planet, excited to shoot monsters in the face. Each week, a new destination will be selected as your main point of interest, and you'll be rewarded for completing tasks like public events in our case. So that's a really good insight into kind of what flashpoints are like. So, in their case, Nessus was highlighted, or perhaps a certain part of Nessus was highlighted, and you had to go in and complete public events. And doing so, or perhaps completing a certain amount, would actually get you these Nightfall tier rewards. And Nightfall tier rewards, for me, means legendaries and the chance to get exotics. Like, that's a really big part about the Nightfalls. So that's a really cool thing, and that's, again, going to give players just more to do. Right now, what do you do in Destiny? You do PvP, maybe you do the Nightfall, blah, blah, blah. But in Destiny 2, you're going to have flashpoints as an all-new thing you can do that's going to give you these good rewards. Moving on from there, they were continuing talking and saying, quote, if you prefer PvP over the PvE experience, there will also be a new Call to Arms event, though we were not told specifically about the rewards for its completion. Then they talk about that these are all part of the new Milestones system, pushing you in the right direction. Milestones are how you track your main goals in Destiny. From your map, you can hit left trigger /R2 to see all of the available missions up for grabs and a clear outline of what you can expect for their completion. It's all about making the path to progression clearer, because after all, the gear game is what Destiny is really about. So, very interesting stuff here. Let's break down that first part about Call to Arms, because we have never heard that before. We have never heard this call to arms being referenced. But because it was said literally right after they talked about flashpoints, it seems like the PvP version of flashpoints, where every week there's going to be maybe a certain playlist being highlighted. Perhaps they're changing how the, weekly PvP game mode works and replacing it with call to arms to earn even better rewards. Because, the weekly PvP game mode, yes, some people do them, but a lot of people just ignore them because the rewards aren't that substantial. But if you had call to arms, making it so that, let's say, 1 week Control offered better rewards, like higher chance to get the Crucible legendaries, you'd get a lot more people in that playlist. That is for darn sure. So that's something that call to arms could be. In any event, it's really good that Bungie has a PvP version of flashpoints for those players out there who prefer PvP. Now, the milestone system is also really interesting, talking about how, yeah, you can hit a button and it's going to outline, here are the missions available to do, these are the rewards that you get from them. That is really good, and that's going to really help a lot of the new players joining Destiny 2, because right now, the progression in Destiny can be a little confusing. Now, speaking of PvP, IGN also got their hands on the Crucible, saying specifically, quote, I can say that the new Control, which is returning in Destiny 2 and actually going to be in the beta, feels much faster paced, but still familiar with the tweaks they've made, retaining moments like those epic multi-kills you love from the original version. So that is good to hear. But they go on to say more on July 10th, so that's going to be their kind of PvP unveiling. Then we'll be back on July 25th with a new mode that had us all smiling ear to ear. That's really interesting because smiling ear to ear, like saying they're really happy, really excited, that doesn't really lend itself to a very competitive, sweaty PvP mode. Like, you're not really smiling ear to ear in Trials of Osiris, for example, unless you win, unless you go to the lighthouse. But during, it's a little bit more competitive and sweaty than that. So with them saying that, that really makes me think of a party game mode, like something like a gun game from Call of Duty, or much more likely, Infect from Halo. Like Halo had Infect. I would love to see that back in Destiny. That would be so much fun. I really hope that's the case because, frankly, Destiny's PvP is just hella sweaty, and it would be really nice to give players a more casual option. Just something like, again, Infect, that they can go and do and have fun while still getting maybe a smaller chance to earn some of the Crucible loot while not being as competitive. Now moving on, the last thing that really piqued my interest was a quote talking about the leveling system and how that would work in Destiny 2, saying there will be a light game in some form for Destiny 2. It should be noted that when we played, Bungie made it clear that they are still finalizing the exact details about how the climb works this time around. We do know that engrams drop, allowing you to collect gear and grow your Guardian, but beyond that, they were vague. So that's really interesting, because keeping it vague really means that things are likely to change. Right now, the leveling system with the slow progression model introduced with the April update and then improved with the Rise of Iron, I think is the best leveling system we've had in Destiny. And remember, especially if you're a new player, this is not the leveling system the game once launched with. We've actually gone through several different iterations of how light leveling works in Destiny to finally get to this point. So it was presumed by myself and many others that, yeah, what we have right now in Destiny will be kind of the same in Destiny 2 because it is the best version, but this quote makes it seem like there is the potential for things to change yet again. I kind of hope not, because if they change it, it could be worse, but it'll be very interesting to see how you actually level up in Destiny 2. Very interestingly, they could just do away with levels. Like right now you level up to level 40 and then you start the light level grind. In Destiny 2, it's entirely possible that you just have a light level grind. You don't worry about leveling up in the first place. So that is a possibility that you should definitely consider. And so guys, that's it for today's Destiny 2 news. I hope you guys enjoyed the video and found it informative. Now if you did, please remember to help me out by simply rating and especially sharing this video. If you guys want to see more Destiny 2 content, be sure to slap that subscribe button. And if you guys want to get in touch with me and keep up to date with the latest channel activity, the best way is to follow me on Twitter at RickCacus. That's linked in the description down below, as is my Twitch channel, which you could also follow. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day.